Oh, hey. Hey. How'd you guys get back here? Well, I was just enjoying some nice Arizona weather back here, playing my arcade box. So in this episode, I want to talk about this little guy. It's a portable, battery-powered arcade. Is it worth it? On this episode, let's check it out. Alright guys, let's unbox this thing. So this obviously took a little bit of time to get to me. It was from China, so you know, it had to make a long journey. So as I opened it up, you had the power supply right there. You had the box itself, the game box, and it had just some styrofoam inserts, so it was packed nice. No damage to anything that I can see, and I'm pretty happy with that. There's a little parts kit and power supply. That's pretty much it. So let's get this thing going. All right, guys, let's dive into the arcade box. You know China and their awesome names for products, but this thing right here is called the arcade box. So the first thing you'll notice about it is you've got your ball top. So that actually acts as a mechanism to lock the device. So you just unscrew that and you lift the cover up. And then what you would do is you just screw it back on to get started. All right, so before we turn this thing on, what's the arcade box packing? It's got a Raspberry Pi 3B with a custom build of recall box that's from the manufacturer. It's got about 10,000 games pre-installed on a 32 gig SD card that came with the unit. You didn't have to buy that separately. This device can be run on batteries. So these are model 81650 batteries. These are lithium-ion batteries. The manufacturer claims that these can last from 2.5 hours to 3 hours on a full charge. So that's not too bad. And it can also be run off of regular 110 power. Only thing I'll say there is you need to make sure you indicate that you're from the US and you want the US plug, otherwise you will not get the right plug. So just a little tip there. And then the screen is a 10-inch LCD screen, so nothing too crazy. And the one surprise, now we are gonna unscrew this to make sure, is that supposedly this is Sanwa joystick and Sanwa buttons. We are gonna verify that by opening it up, but that was kind of a little bit of a surprise. So let's look at the back of it real quick. I'm gonna spin it around, and I'm gonna close the top just for a second. All right, so the back of it, you've got, obviously it's running a Raspberry Pi, so it's gonna look like a Raspberry Pi. It's got 4 USB, an Ethernet connection, where you'd put in your SD card slot, your power, and then right there is where you put batteries, and we're gonna do that later, but for right now, we're just gonna run it off power. Let's actually unscrew it first and validate the inside is what they said it is, and then we'll jump into some basic gameplay. Let's unscrew this thing and see if they're being truthful about the joysticks and buttons that are supposedly in this. So it has 4 screws in each corner, and you can just simply unscrew those really fast. Shouldn't be an issue. And they seem to come out pretty easy. And let's see if this thing really does have Sanwa buttons. If it does, that's a huge plus in my book. Let's see, it does actually have Sanwa buttons. Let me see if I can get that zoomed in so you can actually see that. I don't know if you can read it, but it is Sanwa. So that's pretty cool. And the joystick appears to be Sanwa too. So that's a plus. Inside you'll notice there is a USB encoder and a Raspberry Pi. There's your Raspberry Pi in the back. So there's a Raspberry Pi right there. There's a USB encoder. And then there's some custom stuff in here I'm not familiar with. So that's for the battery pack. So that's good. So that's your charger for the battery pack. Yeah, kind of cool. All right, let me put it back together, and then we'll fire this thing up. All right, let's fire it up and see what we got here. The volume control seems to work on the side, which is good. All right, with the cool intro screen behind us, let's see what systems are on this thing. I was shocked by the sheer quantity of systems and emulators that are on this particular build. It pretty much has everything. It has, you know, everything from Genesis to Super Nintendo to Nintendo to 32X to Dreamcast, Sega CD, Neo Geo, Atari Lynx. I was shocked. So let's dive into some gameplay and see how this thing plays. I didn't play this at full speed just because I tried so many different games. All the arcade games I tried under MAME played really, really well, so all the arcade stuff, as expected, played well for the most part. Yeah, I wanted to give Final Fight a shot. Final Fight played great, full speed, sound was good. I wanted to give some Dreamcast games a shot. Dreamcast surprisingly played really well. You'll notice games like this don't necessarily play that well on Raspberry Pis, but I don't know. I'm a little unfamiliar with Recalbox. It's one of the systems I haven't played with that much, so Recalbox build seems to do a good job. So I don't know if it's got less overhead or what, but it played very, very well. And considering there's only a couple of Dreamcast games on here, you know, obviously you can put your own if that's what you want to do. So you could easily mount this as on your network and just drop the games into the ROMs folder. So anyhow, I wanted to also try some PlayStation games. Those sometimes can be glitchy on emulated systems, but this one played really well. And I don't usually test console games. I'm usually more of a arcade game kind of guy, but I forgot how fun this game was, and it played really well. Sound was good, controls are good, the Sanwa sticks and buttons worked really well, so I'm pretty impressed by this. You know, it's a nice little unit for when you think about the cost of it and what it really contains. All right, so now I want to test the one thing we haven't really checked out yet, and that's the batteries, because this thing supposedly runs off of batteries as well. So I'm going to put the rechargeable batteries in there and see how this thing runs off of battery power versus you know, the wall outlet. So the first thing I noticed when I powered it on is a battery light indicator, and I actually played this for a while, and it does start to go down as the battery's depleted, so that was kind of nice. And the other thing you might notice is if you look on the left-hand side of the LCD screen, it looks a little off-center. I forgot to mention this before. I ended up unscrewing the 4 screws that mount the LCD panel and adjusting that. So that was something that I had to actually change that might have gotten moved in shipping, or it might have been from when they manufactured it. All right, guys, here's some of my final thoughts on the arcade box. It is pretty cool that it's battery powered, but keep in mind you have to purchase those yourself. It is pretty interesting that it came with Sanwa buttons and a joystick, so no need to really replace those because they're pretty good quality. The screen's pretty good, although I will say, you know, it was moved in shipping or whatever, so I did have to adjust that, but that wasn't a big deal. It took me a couple minutes. Overall gameplay is good. It is a one-player device, so I don't see any way of linking another player, although I guess you could hook up a joystick to it and just configure it under Recalbox like you would RetroPie with Emulation Station, so no big deal there. But would I recommend it? I mean, if you're looking for a portable device that plays a good library of emulators and games, then it's pretty neat. So anyways, guys, if you like this, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, turn on notifications so you can be informed of future videos, and thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one.